Reddit calls itself the front page of the internet, but it's also been accused of being a den of misogyny. It is the huge message board that drives so much of the memes and the news stories that you see. Recently, the interim CEO, Ellen Pao, had to step down in the wake of a huge campaign against her. But exactly what is driving it? Well, for that, we have our panel this week. Nick Healy is from the website CNET, and Wendy Zuckerman is from the science podcast Science Versus. So, walk me through exactly what it is that's transpired here.
So Ellen Pao obviously came over filling in from the last CEO, who I think ended his reign in an even shorter time period from memory. She was technically
Some Game of Thrones Reddit
interim
CEO.
CEO. She was already quite high profile because of a law case she had against Kleiner, Perkins, Caulfield and Byers. She'd been trying to work as a venture capitalist and said that actually there was an endemic and systemic sexism within that culture, which I don't think surprises anyone, to be perfectly honest. And she, quite rightfully, wasn't going to sit for it. So I think there was already, in terms of maybe the culture of Reddit, a suspicion about the kind of person she was going to be before she came on board.
Okay.
Well, you say that it wouldn't have surprised anyone, but the court of law in America were very surprised by this.
Shocked by it, apparently, yes, yeah.
And recently they said that, in fact, her case for sexual harassment was not viable, and they said it was not to be. And I think that happened quite recently, all up in the various lead-ups to then the hatred building for her. They said, oh, look, she hasn't got this case in the courts, and yet she still keeps claiming it. So I think that was when people started to really perhaps point the finger at her as being someone that is not a person of character that should be running Reddit, when really it's just a woman that's, I guess, trying to break the glass ceiling.
Now, things hit a wall. It's hard to pinpoint exactly where things hit a wall, but she announced that the site would begin enforcing anti-harassment policies last May. Well, it went down quite badly, but take me through the narrative of exactly what's happened in the reign of Ellen Pao and what it says about Reddit, Nick Healy.
Well, I think the amazing thing was the decision to shut down 5 subreddits. 5 subreddits that in some cases had actually been flagged by the Southern Poverty Law Centre as hate groups.
Right.
Or qualifying as hate groups.
So she shut down hate groups, and then what happened?
People went crazy about it.
How dare
it was
they?
Censorship, of course, Mark. Censorship. I think if you look at the subreddits and look, I mean, the one that got sort of a lot of the coverage was Fat People Hate. Now, you can't tell me that that's not got a strong element of misogyny in it. Because I'll bet any money that it wasn't photos of fat men that were copying it. You know, Wendy said before that, you know, quite often we get the sense that Reddit is driven by this vocal minority of middle-aged young boys. So apparently that Change.org hit nearly 200,000 people, which would represent slightly under 1% of Reddit's user base.
It does kind of beg the question of what kind of company Reddit wants to be. Do they just want to be a big company, and the moment they piss off anyone, they go, oh, okay, change tack? Or whether they want to be a company that actually inspires good thoughts that aren't racist, sexist rants. It's so hard to pinpoint what is misogyny in any case. But then so you have to take a step back and you have to say, okay, what are the statistics here? How many women do we have working in technology? How many women do we have working at Reddit? What is the pay structure like, which we know that Ellen Pao did try to do. So when you look at these bigger figures, you know there is a problem. So at one point, the trickle-down effect has to be the treatment of women, whether it goes so far as to be misogyny or sexual harassment. There is something embedded in that culture that is a problem.
What Pao copped, of course, was the double whammy of misogyny and racism. Certainly, if you look at Twitter comments about her on her exit, when she first instituted the shutting down of the offensive subreddits, the Chairman Pao, of course, was the meme for it. It just went on from there.
And we should say, of course, that when she shut down some subreddits, this was not a particularly comprehensive plan in order to stop racism and sexism on Reddit.
It was a handful of subreddits, realistically.
That's right.
5, I think.
There was still a large swathe of horrible, horrible subreddits involving various races.
And look, I don't want to tar all of Reddit with this because there's a lot of brilliant and fun and great things that come out of Reddit. The whole kind of ethos behind it is this very freewheeling, that which is popular rises to the top, that which is not doesn't. And, you know, you've got this culture of moderators who kind of guide the system, but it's very hard to police. And indeed, if you did police, do you think you would lose some of that sort of potency that it has as a platform?
But I think that every company, every major company online has that problem. But Facebook, whether you agree with how they're going about it, but at least they have made a stand and they've said that we're not going to allow certain content on Facebook Facebook. Reddit has somehow managed to escape this because they've said, oh, our whole business model is on you guys running the show, so we'll just let you run the show. So because they have this kind of bottom-up effect, then they've been able to get around it. But ultimately, they are still a platform that supports racism and sexism at a very high level.
All right, obviously there's lots of opinions about Reddit. If you want to leave an opinion down below, make it somehow decent as a human being. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks, guys.